What's up, 8th grade? Mr. Agnos here, and this video is to help you with homework 8-5. So I'm actually going to start with number 4 on this one. It says a line passes through the points, and then it gives me 2 points here. Write a linear function rule in terms of x and y for this line. Okay, so what is going on here is we don't have the graph, but they did give us 2 points. So again, imagine I have a graph here. And here's my x-axis and here's my y-axis, and they say, okay, you got this point 314. I'm just going to say maybe it's right there, and we have this point. I'll actually put the coordinates there, and then maybe we have this other point 617. So maybe it's right there, and there's a line that passes through these 2 points. All right. And a line goes infinitely in both directions. So we have a line that looks like this, and they want us to write the equation for this line. Okay, when they say linear function rule, that is just a synonym for equation. Okay, so they want to write the equation for this line, and we know that we always write linear equations in the form y equals mx plus b. And in order to write it in this form, I need to know, well, what is m? And then I'll plug it in right here. And I need to know what is b. And I'll plug it in right here. So from just these 2 pieces of information, right here and right here, I need to figure out the slope and the y-intercept. All right, because I don't have the graph. So I don't know what this point is. I don't know what this point is. I can't really make a slope triangle. Again, I don't have the graph. So let's start with, you're always going to start by finding the slope. So I can find the slope using 2 points here. We're going to have to use the slope formula. So remember, the slope formula, I'll write it, the general form down here is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So the first thing we want to do is we want to label our coordinates. Okay, since this is the first x, that'll be x sub 1. Since this is the first y, that'll be y sub 1, and x sub 2 and y sub 2. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to plug these numbers in the correct spot. Right, the first number I need is y sub 2, so that's 17. Minus y sub 1, which is 14. On the bottom, I need to start with x sub 2, well, that is 6, minus x sub 1, which is 3. And then we just go ahead and do the subtraction, and that will tell us our slope. So 17 minus 4 is 3. 6 minus 3 is 3. We have to simplify this. Well, we know any number divided by itself is equal to 1. So the slope of our line is actually 1. Okay, now that we found the slope, how on earth are we going to find the y-intercept? Well, what you're going to do, and this is brand new, is we're actually going to plug the slope in here, and then we're going to pick one of these 2 coordinates. It doesn't matter. I could pick this pair or I could pick this pair. It doesn't matter which pair you pick. You're going to get the same result. And we're going to plug in those values for x and y. So I'm going to take the x coordinate. I'll use the second one. So I'm going to plug in a 6 here for x, and I'm going to plug in 17 here for y, and we're actually going to solve for b. So let's see what that looks like. All right, so I'm going to rewrite this equation. Okay, and again, we're going to use this point right here. Instead of y, I'm going to plug in 17, because that's the y coordinate, is equal to 1, because we already solved for 1 as the slope, times 6, because our x coordinate is 6, plus b. Notice now we have an equation that only has 1 variable. We don't know what b is. So if we solve this equation, we will figure out what b is. All right, this is easy. We have 17 is equal to, well, 1 times 6 is just 6. So I have 6 plus b is equal to 17. Let's go ahead and subtract 6 from both sides. 17 minus 6 is 11. 6 minus 6 cancels. So B is equal to 11. So now I know both puzzle pieces, right? I know both of the pieces of information that I need. So the linear function rule, right? Again, that just means equation. For this line, we got to plug in our m and we have to plug in our 11. So our final answer is going to be y is equal to, all right, I could put 1x and I'll go ahead and write it plus 11. I think the computer will accept this. Again, remember, if it's a 1 here, you really don't have to put it. So you could also write it, I'll say y is equal to just x plus 11. Those are mathematically identical. Again, the only difference is the 1 here. So we solved for the slope. We solved for the y-intercept. We can write the equation for the line. So again, we know that this line does in fact cross the y-axis here at 11. So I'm actually going to try putting the 1 there and see what it says. 1x plus 11. Got it. Yeah, so it doesn't mind if you have the 1 there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take the same strategy, but we're actually going to work on a problem that has context or story to it. So I'm actually going to go back to number 3. And they give us a little story. And remember that last problem, it started off that we had 2 coordinate pairs. And so every problem on this assignment, we have to come up with 2 coordinate pairs to write our linear equation. So here it says an international food festival. They charge for admission, that's to get in, and then you have to pay for each sample of food inside the festival. Admission in 5 samples costs $8.75. And admission in 9 samples costs $12.75. Write a linear function rule. Remember, that just means equation. To model the cost y for any number of samples x. Okay, so we have to look at these 2 pieces of information here and say, all right, so admission in 5 samples costs $8.75. So they're actually giving us a coordinate pair here, right? Samples is x. And the total cost is y. So this little statement right here actually represents the point 5, 8.75. So there's my first coordinate pair. Over here, 9 samples. Well, again, remember, samples is x. So I have 9, and then cost is the y, $12.75. So now that I have 2 coordinate pairs, I can go ahead and do the exact same thing we did in the previous problem. Okay? In order to write this equation, we need to know 2 things. What is the slope, right? Got to figure that out. What is the y-intercept? So let's start by calculating the slope. And just to remind you guys, slope is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. All right, remember, you can pause the video if you need to. If I'm going too fast, you can rewind. But again, I do have, a certain amount of time here that the program gives me. So again, if I'm going too fast, just pause it so you can catch yourself up, or rewind a few seconds, again, to catch yourself up. All right, this is my first x, so that's x sub 1. First y, that's y sub 1. I'm actually going to put those underneath. So here's x sub 1, here's y sub 1, here's x sub 2, and here's y sub 2. So let's go ahead and plug everything in. Y sub 2 is $12.75 minus y sub 1 is $8.75. Okay, that's our top. So we took care of those. X sub 2 is 9 minus x sub 1 is 5. All right, what do we got here? $12.75 minus $8.75 is 4. over 9 minus 5 is 4. And 4 over 4 is equal to 1. So just coincidence, but same as last problem, but our slope in this situation is 1. And what that excuse me, what that is telling us is that each sample costs $1. Right? And you can see that. From here we had 5 samples. Here we had 9. So we have 4 more samples and it costs $4 more, right? We went from $8.75 to $12.75. So what we just found out was that, hey, each sample costs $1. We still don't know what the admission costs. Well, the admission would be, hey, I paid to get in and I bought 0 samples, right? I haven't bought anything yet. So we got to figure out that number. And the way we do that is we're going to pick one of these 2 coordinate pairs. Again, it doesn't matter which one you pick. You could pick 5, 875, or you could pick 9, 1275. You're going to get the same answer. So I'll go with the 5, 875. So remember, we always write linear equations in the form y equals mx plus b. Well, we know what m is, right? It's 1. And we know that we're going to use 5 for x and 875 for y. So I'm going to rewrite this equation as 875, right? That's my y coordinate right here, is equal to m is 1, x is 5, plus b. So now we have this nice equation which only has the one variable, only has b in it. We can solve for that. So 875 is equal to 1 times 5 is 5. So I have 5 plus b is equal to 875. So let's go ahead and subtract 5 from both sides. Careful about how you line up your decimal over here. We're subtracting 5 wholes, so it actually goes over there. All right. Those cancel, and we get b, right? So this is going to tell us our y-intercept, which for this problem is the price of admission, right? It would mean, hey, how much did we pay to get in and buy 0 samples? And then if I have 875 and I spend $5, well, then I'm left with 375. All right. Oh, that's the wrong color. All right. So now I can write an equation here, right? I have the slope, I have the y-intercept. So the cost of going to this festival, right? So the total cost, which is y, right? The cost is y, is going to equal $1 per sample. That's the $1 times the number of samples, plus the $3.75 admission fee. So there's my function rule, my equation that models the cost of going to this festival. So I can do 1x. Again, the 1 it's kind of optional. 3.75. Got it. Okay. This is definitely a challenging assignment. So I expect lots and lots of questions. I haven't covered everything. This is just to help you get started. So make sure to put your questions in the chat, and I'll see you in class.